Hey everyone, we're going to talk a little bit about the images for the SOAPS assignment that you had a few days ago because there was a lot of discussion that happened in class that virtual students would not necessarily have had access to. So, first ad is a Dodge ad, and I'm going to talk about, before we get into SOAPS, we're going to talk about what's going on in the ad in the first place. Which is if you were to be reading a speech, before you begin analyzing the rhetoric, you have to read the speech top to bottom. So it's often called doing a cold read. So you want to do the same thing. You want to do a cold read with this. You want to look what's going on. So other than the image itself, the first text we see is right around here. It's a big, fat, juicy cheeseburger in a land of tofu. So tofu is a relatively, on its own, a very bland soy protein, which you can spice it up, flavor it up, and actually make it pretty good. But in this case, they're using the connotation of it being very bland. And the way we know that is because they're comparing it to a big, fat, juicy cheeseburger. Again, tofu is also a source of protein that may not taste as good as the cheeseburger does. So that statement in and of itself is really interesting because now they're comparing, if this vehicle, where they say it's a big fat juicy cheeseburger, obviously they're referring to this vehicle because the vehicle is what dominates the image. So this vehicle, they're using an analogy. They're comparing it to a big fat juicy cheeseburger in a land of bland, tasteless tofu. Tofu is also associated with vegetarians and vegans. And with this being the mid-late 90s, um, vegans and vegetarians might have been as I suppose smaller per capita in the U.S. than they are now. And this is the connotation of that statement is pretty derogatory. It's as if to say that this right here is the cheeseburger. This is for the people who eat real meat, eat flavorful meat, and they don't touch tofu, which is this bland, tasteless vegetarian protein. So there's a lot of things that you can take out of that little statement. First, you could say that the cheeseburger is authentic, whereas tofu is a source of protein that people try to make it take on the flavors of chicken or the flavors of beef, but it's not the real thing. So there's a connotation of authenticity right there. They're telling the reader, who is most likely male, be authentic. They're also saying be tough in a way, because the cheeseburger, especially if it's a bacon cheeseburger, something had to die in order for you to eat this protein. So be tough, eat a cheeseburger, don't eat tofu. So it's making that was the bell. Sorry about that. It's making that connotation too. So you have the authenticity one, you have the sort of masculine, like eat a cheeseburger, and then you also, the third appeal, which is also a very masculine appeal, is to say that, because we all know like a big fat juicy cheeseburger is probably not healthy for you in the way that tofu is widely considered to be, but it tastes good. So it also has that masculine feel of, to heck with the risks, go with what tastes good, go with what feels good. So you've got a lot going on in that statement. And if you were to look at the rhetorical tool, it's an analogy. It's comparing this Dodge Durango, which is either authentic or like an authentic American experience, or it is a I don't want to say risky, but the not as healthy as the tofu option, because if you look up here, it talks about it having a V8. So where all other car companies are concerned with emissions and the health of the environment, Dodge says, heck no, forget that stuff. We're tough. We're that big juicy cheeseburger in the land of bland, wimpy tofu. So again, there's a lot to pick apart in just that simple statement. Aside from the image itself, there's speed happening. It's at the front. It's taking up most of the picture. We want to focus a lot on the words that are being said. So up here, it just says Dodge Durango. Why drive some pathetic excuse for an SUV when you can wrap your hands around Dodge Durango, the most affordable SUV with a V8? Durango's maximum available towing capacity is almost 4 tons. In other words, and here's the fun part, this baby carries around chunks of those wimpy wannabes in its tailpipe. So again, the connotation of tofu being for wimps is revisited right there, that this big cheeseburger of a vehicle, and the man driving it, of course, he eats cheeseburgers, he doesn't eat tofu. I'm being silly, but as a reader you're left to make that connection. I think you could also make the connection, if we're talking about a cheeseburger, the connotation of an American experience, because at the time, you had SUVs from Nissan and Toyota. So Japanese cars were flooding the American SUV market. So they're also making a call to buy American, buy tough American vehicles rather than, a Toyota 4Runner that, oh, it just has a V6. It doesn't have a V8. Never mind the fact that the Toyota's V6 is very efficient. It's probably still pretty quick, but it's just not going to have that raw power that the V8 does. Again, making that very masculine appeal to power. So that being said, we've done our cold read. We've looked at this. If you were to SOAPS it out, who is the speaker? Well, it's Dodge. What's the occasion? Well, the market has been flooded with Japanese SUVs that aren't as powerful as a V8 Durango would be. You could also think that maybe men traditionally don't buy SUVs. Men at the time bought trucks. SUVs were more for stereotypically a female audience at the time, because it was an alternative to the minivan for the parent who had multiple kids to take to school and practice and things like that. So audience, men, potentially. In class, we talked about men who were insecure in their masculinity because the Dodge Durango could somehow, it was the manly choice, the risky choice, the tough choice. Again, going back to the cheeseburger and land of tofu thing. So they're trying to appeal to a male audience. And that gets, and also the consideration of the emission standards at the time. It's also part of the occasion. To go to audience, come on, who's the audience? Men, probably middle-aged men with disposable income, because I'll tell you right now, an Airstream trailer, not cheap. So these are for most likely middle-aged men who are established in their career, probably married, probably have kids, whatever it may be. But this is skewed towards a masculine audience. Purpose? Simple. Buy a Dodge Durango. Sell it to men who may not have considered it otherwise. And then the subject, well, the subject part of SOAPS, we just went over all of that in examining the print. And so with that being said, we're going to go on to our next ad. And if you did your SOAPS assignment on the Dodge ad and it wasn't as thorough, no big deal. That's why I'm creating this video. So we're going to look at this ad by PETA. For if you don't know, PETA is a nonprofit organization. That stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Now, there's a lot going on in this ad. And first and foremost, the first thing you notice is the kid eating the burger. The burger doesn't look particularly appetizing. The child is perhaps maybe bigger than usual, but she doesn't look like she's having a very good time. This burger, again, not enjoyable. Looks more like something you would get in like a cafeteria rather than going to like a gourmet burger restaurant, or even like a Whataburger is going to look better than that does. So we have this image that is just very off-putting. And then we scroll down, doing the cold read. Feeding kids meat is child abuse. Fight the fat, go vegan. PETA. Okay. One of the things about rhetoric is we have to also examine when rhetoric doesn't do a very good job, when it has the opposite effect. Because I look at this ad, I didn't really have a strong opinion about PETA one way or the other, But after looking at this ad, I'm going to think, yeah, I don't think I like them very much, because if I were a parent, um, most likely I have fed my child meat. Meat is nutritious. There is nutrition, there's protein, there's all sorts of things in meat. Sorry, bell again. Um, and that to be said, I'm not putting down people who don't eat meat. I understand and respect that. Um, but this ad right here certainly does not help the case of people who are trying to further the cause of veganism or vegetarianism. First off, what does it do? Well, it is conflating feeding your child meat, which is a regular practice, to hitting that child. That somehow giving my child a burger or giving my child a chicken strip or something like that is the same thing as me balling up my fist and hitting my child. Whoops, we went ahead. That is unacceptable. That is, in rhetoric, that's what's called a false equivalence. You're equating two things that are not the same. So that's going on. We have the blood red color of the word meat. Again, and then they do the same thing with go vegan. I don't get that. I think they would want that to be green. But in them noting that feeding kids meat is child abuse, they say fight the fat. They're body shaming this kid, which is a form of child abuse. So they're actually engaging in abusive language to try to shame parents who are feeding their children meat. It fails spectacularly. And I don't mean spectacularly in a positive way. I guess, if you're going to fail, go all out. But let's go ahead and SOAPS this real quick. Who's the speaker? PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. All right, what is the occasion? Well, they are a pro-animal rights organization, and they are probably seeking to at least put a minor dent in the factory farming industry. They want people to go vegan. They want parents to go vegan, whatever it may be. Who is the audience? Well, in class, and I want to give credit where credit's due, I believe it was Carter who said that this isn't oriented towards parents who feed their kids meat. This is oriented towards people who are already vegan, and this gives them something to shame other people about. And I thought that was brilliant. He was 100% correct. So the audience could be parents who feed their kids meat, but I also think it serves two audiences. The other audience could be people who are already vegan and they're looking for some ammunition, not literal ammunition, but figurative ammunition should they head into a debate with somebody about this. This is pure rhetoric. We have no logic. We have no statistics. We have nothing saying why meat is bad. It just says that it's child abuse, and it leaves it at that. We talked about audience. What's the purpose? Again, I think purpose goes back to audience. Maybe convince parents to stop feeding their kids meat, but moreover, I think to give vegans more to debate with. This just reads like a protest slogan. Like there's no logic behind it. There's no statistics. There's no facts. There's nothing. There is just this sad image, this quick sentence, and then fight the fat, go vegan, where they engage in abusive body shaming. So purpose, you know what? You tell me. Honestly, I don't like this ad. So you could tell me what you think the purpose is. As long as it's supported by evidence, it works. So we're about to wrap up. And the last part of SOAPS is subject, which is just to say what the ad itself is about, which we just did. And the last one is the rat race ad. And I will let you figure that one out. This one isn't real. I'm sorry, I said ad. This one's a cartoon. And I think this speaks more to the just general human condition living in a materialistic culture, that materialism won't buy you happiness. So I look forward to reading your SOAPS analyses, but just consider these things whenever you're looking at rhetoric, that it's never just so simple as like one word answers when you're doing SOAPS. So thank you very much.